Hello everyone, welcome to Train Simulator 2019. Yes, I'm saying 2019 still because this footage was recorded before the 2020 update, and I may do a video covering the 2020 update, but for now, we are still continuing our Donner Pass modernization route. As you see, I'm going to show you guys here in the start of this video the things I've done off camera. As you can see, a lot of the bridges have been completed there. You can see the rail bridge and the road and highway bridges. The one thing I don't like is the abutment bridges. I think that came in the Stevens Pass route. They're great assets. I really love that concrete texture on them and such. However, like that grassiness there just doesn't really work out well. So we'll see how I feel if I'm going to keep those abutments or not. You can see there I've also added some guardrails at the edge of the highway there as well. Didn't do too much scenery outside of like these guardrails or bridges, but at least just to get a starting, point in the scenery. At least did some of those splines as well. Here you can see on this road I also added some, it was a spline for this embankment kind of thing. It wasn't tall enough either, so you can see I'm just pointing out some of the mistakes here that I'll have to fix and whatnot later down the road. And even on the other side, it's not fully completed. I don't even know if I'm gonna complete the other side, just because you're not going to really see that when you're driving around on the route. That whole on-ramp and off-ramp thing on that side actually is completely different than what's on Google Maps there, as you see. So we'll see how that goes. You can see right here, I added like a little gravel spline there on top. Again, just because I don't like that asset, how it's just all grass. I wish there was like a gravel one or dirt or something like that. That would really work with that. As you see, I've also completed more of the highway bridges over here. The only thing I don't like about this is that I think it's a little bit too high. It was already really high to begin with on the original route. I did lower it a bit, but I think it still needs some lowering. I've already done so much with the roads, with the bridges, with those abutments there and those support beams, so I think I'm just going to leave it as is. But I think that part turned out really well. As you see here, I did go into detail with the interchange, if you call it that, with all the different exit ramps, on ramps, off ramps, all that kind of things. It's not completely finished. There's still some areas where it does need some touch-ups. I'm not going to do that on camera. It's going to be an off-camera thing since it's so far away from the tracks. But you can see, yes, I did put the time and effort to do all of that. So I guess you could say it's a little Easter egg for the route, if you want to call it that. So yeah, that is everything I did off camera. Let us go into the speed build of things. This is going to be 20 some minutes of your time wasted, so hopefully that you won't be able to gain back. So hopefully you do enjoy this. Back there I just added one of those end pieces to the tracks, whatever they're called. Anyway, so the main focus of this episode is the crossings, and I did a little bit of scenery actually just next to this crossing as well. So just going to show you guys a few things. This is going to be repeated about 3 times because I did 3 of these crossings in this area, I believe just east? Yeah, just east of Reno, west of Sparks Yard. As you see here, this is the spline for the, I don't even know what these are called. I guess crossing ramps are what they call. I'm not really sure. I think these are Stevens Pass splines, and these are probably the nicest crossing ramps or fillers that you can put that will look pretty realistic when you go over them and near them. I just heard something in my room. I don't know what that was. Anyways, so continuing on. So you can see here, just raising the road here up to those crossing ramps and whatnot, just kind of adjusting them as well, placing those, I don't even know what those are called. Yeah, I can't think of it right now. I guess it is embankment points or whatever, so you can raise the spline. See there is a little bit of that gap underneath, and later on, you guys will see I did remember to raise the ground level to that. I don't know why I didn't think of that when I started this crossing ramp, but at least I thought of it later on. I thought maybe there'd be a spline or asset that I could use underneath. Here, I was trying to cut this crossing filler. I don't really know what the technical term of this is called. I guess it is a crossing panel. Yeah, now that I actually look at the left side of the screen, the crossing panels. Yeah, I figured out the term. But I just kind of moved them. I was originally going to split them, but then I thought, well, I'd just move them just in case I accidentally cut the rails. As soon as I cut the rails, it's pretty much game over. I can't really reconnect them in an easy manner. So I'm going through here and I'm getting ready to do the crossings, and then I realized, oh yeah, Pacific Surfliner, Donner Pass, Stevens Pass, they don't necessarily have the greatest selection of crossing gates, and so I'm very sorry, but as you see in the top right there, I do add the Chicago route to the list of assets. One of those, yeah, there it is. I don't know if it's called Racetrack or if it's called Chicago, but I selected at some point there. You'll see it. Maybe I'll select it. Come on, you'll find it. Yeah, BNSF Chicago. And well, because a lot of that route is just crossing gates. It takes place just west of Chicago, and so there are a lot of crossings, and these are probably the most realistic looking crossing gates that you can put in your route. So it's another Burlington Northern Santa Fe route that, again, for those of you who don't live in the United States, and I was reminded about this in my second episode, for those of you who don't live in the United States, you can't access any of the Burlington Northern Santa Fe routes or assets because of licensing and things like that, which kind of sucks. And I was thinking about redoing it to where I don't use Stevens Pass or the Chicago line, but I thought, this is my unique route. These are the assets I'm going to use. So for those of you in the US, you can, use this route. For those outside, tough luck. I really don't mean it to be that way. It's kind of just, how I started and envisioned this. So I don't really want to start over. Hopefully someone out there does create like a modernized version that, uses assets that are available outside of the country. So I do apologize for that. But moving on, again, these are wonderful crossing gates. As you can see there, there are several steps that you do need to take to make sure these crossing gates work correctly, and I'll explain them in the next crossing gate there. But you see there's many of those little points for the rails and then for the roads. Those obviously, the rail ones are to trigger the crossing gates, and then the road ones are to trigger where the AI cars will stop when the gates do go down. I do also adjust the gates and such like that, just so they're a little bit closer to the track and just oriented to where I would like them to be. So yeah, I'll go through all the steps right here since I didn't do that the first time. So I do the offset tool there on the rails to get the crossing panels to their length and such, so they're parallel to the tracks and to the right curvature and such like that. And then I move them over. I usually hold down, I click on the prop and then I hold shift, and then that's how I get fine adjustments with lining those crossing panels up. And then I put that embankment pointy tool thingy, I guess that's what we're going to call it from now on, just to kind of raise the, and then I made a mistake right there, where I accidentally hit the crossing panel, so be sure not to do that. And then I raise them up so the road is smoothed out through there, and I'm just kind of checking, making sure the levels on that look good. And then here's where I went to the snap tool, and then I raised the surrounding ground up to the road. It doesn't go all the way to the road surface, otherwise it would cut through the road spline. So as you see right there, I got it just wide enough to where, it did look like there was some embankment to it. And then over here, you can see I had to adjust the road just a little bit here, just to get around where it went through. And then as you see here, I had to do a little bit more adjusting of the crossing gates here. Actually, that one's a little bit far away. I don't know if I readjusted that one. But anyways, this is a lot of stuff that I could have cut out or sped up. A little bit rusty. Again, it's been a while since I did another one of these speed builds. Again, I did record this a few weeks ago, just didn't have the time to edit this, so... anyways, back on track. I'm like all over on this video, so I apologize if you're already super sidetracked. But if you're still watching, I thank you. Anyway, so here we go with the steps on putting it down. The first 2 points are for the rails. The second points are for the road. I think you so when you click the crossing asset down, you first get those sensors for the rails, and then I think you right click, and then you'll get the sensor option for the road, and then you just right click after that to make sure or just to finalize that prop. You see here I'm adjusting that. The other thing you'll notice too is when you get to the road, you do have, so for the rails you have 2 arrows that go in either direction. For the road you only have 1 arrow, and what you want to do is the arrow needs to be oriented to where, let's say you're coming up to the rails and you stop, you want the arrow to be facing the other side or the direction of that, where that traffic is going. Otherwise, if it's pointed the other way, traffic's going to stop from the other direction, and then you're just going to have a bunch of cars on the rails. So you'll see that in this one. I think you'll click on that little sensor and then hold shift, and then, or you press shift and you hold shift, and then that will orient that sensor to the correct direction. So here we are at a bigger crossing. I really should know or learn the street names. That'd be helpful when it comes time to explaining and talk about these videos. Let's see here, more of the same repetitiveness here. You see that the spline turns red, I guess when I'm not sure if it's like a leveled out spline or something like that, so sometimes that's a good tool, especially right here with the rails. This is a little scrapyard that I'm gonna be really excited to get into. That original version that I talked about before, where I had started a modernizing route of Donner, before it got deleted. I did work on this extensively, and there are some really good props in the Stevens Pass route and Pacific Surfliner that will make for a very good scrapyard. And so that rail right there is just, if you go to street view of this area, that's like a really low rail there, because they have like a little, I guess you can call it platform that goes up to the rail. So that is that. I spent a little bit of time on that, and then I kind of raised this area up. Oh, that's the other thing too right here, was there is a prominent, as you can even see on the overlay, a prominent sidewalk. So I found a sidewalk, and I did the offset thing once again, and then I added the sidewalks to the edge. You guys will see here in a little bit there was another sidewalk prop that I could have used instead, and there's a good chance that I'll delete that and use the other one. You'll see why here in a minute. But I set those down, and what's cool is that once you adjust your original spline and then you do an offset of that, it kind of already adjusts the height of that spline and such from there. So you see here I have to kind of lower those so they don't go over the rails, and that actually turned out really good. Like, I'm pretty proud of that. I don't think I've done that before. I've never done an offset of a sidewalk, so that was kind of like the first time I've done that, and it looked pretty good the first time there, and then I did that to the other side as well. This is really tough using this. I keep forgetting what the name of this tool is. I guess it is the gradient tool, something like that. But anyways, sometimes that's tough, especially when you have all these different splines of the rails and the road intermixed and whatnot. You see here is the other sidewalk, and that has a little lip to it that would go underneath the underneath the road. So could have used that. I might use that just because it looks wider and stuff, looks a little cleaner. I think that was from the Chicago route, so that's why I didn't think of that until then. So here, there is a little, again, if you go to Street View and you look on maps, there's a little, I guess you could say, road island there. And there's also gates on the center of that as well. And so I thought, well, let's try to replicate that. We're not going to get close to what it is, but we can at least get something similar to that. I think that little berm island thing it turned out perfect. That height there, after like the third try of adjusting it, turned out super well. Here you can have the bigger crossing gates with the gantry. Now this gantry, it is a gantry crossing. Here you can see the little arrows as well. You see I adjusted them, making sure the arrows point inward. I guess the rule of thumb is point your arrows inward, and that will help that. All right, so anyway, getting sidetracked again. This crossing does have a gantry, but it, as you see in the top, it has like 2 of the lights. The gantry here in real life only has 1, and those gates arms are actually really small, but there are 2 of them. I would say this is a little bit big for the road, but it's still a major road, and just trying to be realistic, stay realistic to the route and whatnot, what's there in real life. So you see I added the other 2, I did the same thing, the other 2 gates I should say, added them just the same way as I did the normal crossing gates, but I just flipped them to the other side to get the dual crossing gate effect. And honestly, this turned out really good the first try. I'm not too happy with that overlapping of the gate arms, as you can see there. And this is one of those moments where I wish you can separately size that gate arm. But you can't do that. Technology just isn't there, but it still looks good. You can still make do with it, and I think it looks really good. You can see here, I guess because on the opposite side, they didn't have that light detail for whatever reason, but it does work on either side. I don't know why it was doing that for me. So yeah, that is that. All right, we are back closer to Sparks' yard a bit, and we're gonna do a little bit of scenery before we end this episode. And so this is the first time I'm kind of adding buildings and such to the route, and this is probably the one thing I hate about assets, and at least how Dovetail Games has assets chosen in this game. You can choose to get an image of the assets, so you can at least see a preview of it before you select on it. However, that takes a long time to load, so you're pretty much just stuck with scrolling through, clicking, a bunch of assets, putting them down, and then if it doesn't look good, you click the next asset in the list. At least some of them are named appropriately, so like these are named, so like I think this is from, I think these assets are maybe from the Chicago route, I don't know. Well, anyways, but it says like building and then industrial, so and we're in an industrial side of the map as well, so at least that kind of helps too. But it's hard to find the right building and such. And then if you walk away from this a long time and then you haven't really gone through this in a while, you kind of forget the names of your favorite assets to use and such. So this is gonna be the part of the route building that's gonna take a pretty long time. It's funny because I use a very similar prop. It's this prop here for pretty much all of this. I just did a lot of overlapping, and that's what's cool. You can be creative. You can overlap your props. You can add on just to make things work and whatnot. Now I think these are actually flat roofed buildings, but I decided, well, these buildings are skinny enough to where I didn't have to resize them. That's another thing too. I could have taken any of those buildings and just continued to resize them, but then I tried to find props that were similar to the size on the map, that way I don't have to rescale it, because sometimes doors may be extremely small or extremely large, and it wouldn't turn out great. So yeah, this is like a little service area. I think if you go to Google Maps, it's like city or county, utilities, I guess. And you can see across the street, there's like a bunch of the same vehicle and stuff. So it's just, again, it doesn't need that much detail. But I still like to do that. I still like to be as realistic as possible. There, I was just now struggling with the copy and paste tool. Actually, this wasn't the only computer issue I had after this. I had a really hard time after my video was done, like rendering and stuff, or saving, whatever it's called. For whatever reason, it wouldn't let me view the video. But if I moved the file to like my laptop, which is what I record on, the video finally worked. So something went weird with the computer. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, for whatever reason, the copy tool didn't work there as well. There's a little small road that goes behind those buildings and along the tracks there, and I was just trying to adjust the spline there. For whatever reason, it was really hovering over the ground. That didn't make any sense. So did a little bit of that detail, added a few more building details as well. The more I talk through this, the more, I tried my best to shorten, a lot of these clips. A lot of this speed building is going to be really boring, and it's going to be long, especially since, like I keep saying, I'm taking so much time to make it look somewhat like real life. And that's hard. I think a fantasy route is much quicker because you're not confined to trying to be exact to, Google Map overlay per se, or pictures or whatnot, and trying to replicate things exactly. So this is definitely going to be a very difficult, time-consuming build. In the end, yeah, sure, it will be worth it, but it's just a matter of me trying to figuring out what's the best way to get this series through quickly. maybe it will be me, taking several different recording sessions of me doing speed builds and then compiling together. Because as you can see, this is like the last thing we're doing in this video. We did 3 of those crossing gates, and then now we're working on this little, utility building and stuff for like the city or the county. So I don't know if that's a lot of content for you guys. Maybe you are learning a lot from this. But like I said, let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I will try to improve with that. Here's another downside of Train Simulator, and that is the painting tool. I hate it so much because it's confined to a grid system, and it looks so off. And there's also a lack of different paints that you can use as well. So I just went with the flow there, and here's the fun part of adding a bunch of cars. You can see there, just at the top of the screen, there's like a bunch of like white vans or something like that, like utility vans and such in that area. I didn't really want to do that. I just wanted to put like a parking lot full of utility vehicles, as well as just normal like pickup trucks and SUVs and things like that, as well as semi trucks. There are tons of semi trucks and box trucks here in this area as well. So I pasted a lot of those. See here, those are those box trucks. Anything that really makes this area pop out does look like there's a lot of things going on here. A lot of different trucks here for the business, dropping supplies off, things like that. And it's another thing too, it's hard to find a good vehicle for a lot of this. What normally happens is I place one vehicle, then I find other places to put it down, and then I find the same vehicle but just in a different color, and then I paste those in different spots as well. Just try to get some assortment with the scenery and things like that. I'm sure this would hinder a lot of people's computer performances, so hopefully it won't affect it too much. But there you go. There are, like I said, just adding some more cars and stuff to this area. Even across the street there should be more. I should have also worked on that as well, since I placed some buildings in that area as well. And then here we go with some more semi trucks and things like that in this corner. I'm just kind of thinking about what else I need to complete. I think there are some chain link fences and some gates and stuff for this area, so there's going to be a lot of scenery like that I'm still going to have to complete, so I'll probably do that in a video and get that underway. I think for the most part what I should do is spend the next episode just focusing on buildings. So focusing on all the buildings from this point and then closer to Reno, and then then I'll work on like cars and trees and like that separately. I think that may organize the video much more. For this episode I just didn't really know where to go, especially since the main focus was getting those crossing gates, and well, that was a piece of cake. That was pretty easy. So the next episode, that might be a better way to organize the videos. Get a little bit more interest and whatnot, and then I could just focus on building assets and stuff without having to worry about car assets and scenery assets as well. So I may do that, and I also want to get into Reno so badly. I think a really good episode will be working on the rails going into Reno as well. Alright, and I think we're coming up to the end of the video, but you see I put more semi-trucks in that area as well. I almost forgot the relay boxes, I guess that's what they're called, just the utility boxes for the crossing grades, so I placed those down, and that would be the end of this speed build. So yes, it's been a while. I bet I sound rusty doing this, but hopefully I can keep up the pace and get more videos out to you guys. Here's some action with the gates and with the trains in our area. It's coming along pretty nicely. All these cinematics gets me even more pumped up to just knock out a bunch of these speed builds every single day. So thank you guys again for watching. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more train simulator content. Like the video if you enjoyed, and feel free to comment on any concerns, anything you've seen in this video, anything that will help me out, or anything that maybe you've learned. Be sure to share that down there. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in episode 4 of Modernizing Donner Pass.